I have been hyped for Baldur's Gate 3. I loved Divinity Original Sin 2, so to see Larian Studios tackle Baldur's Gate 3 has been awesome. And it's available now in early access alpha state. And even though it's in its alpha state, I've still been loving it. I've been playing the crap out of it and just enjoying it. Though I can't help but feel there are some different ideas or tweaks or adjustments I would like to see made to the game before it finally comes out. Now I'm gonna try to avoid all of the obvious stuff like add in this class or make sure this race appears or fix all the bugs. Yes, obviously they're working on that. They're going to do that. These are ideas that haven't been hinted at or planned that I thought could really improve Baldur's Gate 3 when it finally hits its full version. So in no particular order, these are my ideas for improvements that they should make to Baldur's Gate 3.
Let's start it simple. Character creation. Obviously right now, with early access, there's only so many options available for customizing your character. For example, there's only a few voices and a handful of different pre-made faces to choose from. And that's my gripe, they're pre-made faces. I would love to see some options to adjust the features of all the faces. I don't need full-on face creation like other games, but maybe some sliders that adjust things like nose, eyes, mouth, ears. Or a separate option to pick a face and then choose different eyebrows or eye shape or whatever. It's a small way to make sure that you don't look the same as every other NPC in the world, and to make sure that when you play with friends, you don't create someone who both looks and sounds exactly the same. Besides, right now, literally every single face is too perfectly chiseled. Them cheekbones and jawlines are too flawless. I'm trying to look like an adventurer, not a Chad-venturer. Here's a big one. Every character has a huge list of actions that they can take every turn in combat. Weapon attacks, spells, bonus actions like dashing, shoving, and drinking a potion. But there were numerous times where I found myself in situations in which I couldn't reasonably do anything. I couldn't run up and reach anyone to attack, I couldn't reliably land a spell, and not a single potion provided a benefit that would help me at that time. So what else could I do but click end turn and have zero impact? That sucks. That never feels good. And then I end up getting shot or a minotaur lands on my friggin' head. With Baldur's Gate 3 being such a fantastic recreation of 5th edition rules, there's no reason that the option to dodge is missing. In the tabletop version of Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, this makes all attack rolls against you have disadvantage and all of your dexterity saving throws have advantage until your next turn. This translates so easily to the engine of Baldur's Gate 3 that its omission is surprising, especially when a character is brought down to a lethal level of hit points, and being able to act defensively until a cleric can reach with a cure spell or similar would be huge. Or imagine the wizard or sorcerer class being completely out of spells for the day and can't realistically do anything else. Being able to dodge and not be a liability would be massive. Combat is already unapologetically difficult as it is, which I love, and having a defensive choice like this can help ease that for a lot of players. Plus, in the tabletop rules, a character can't dodge if their speed ever drops to 0, so stuff like getting ensnared, webbed, or tangled works perfect for the environment-heavy gameplay that Larian Studios does so well. Add in the dodge action. Like I said, I've been playing Baldur's Gate 3 almost entirely in multiplayer. I've loved every second of it, especially when it comes to our different characters, using their different abilities to solve puzzles or explore, and to see how differently we all handle combat situations. But if there's one thing that irks me and my friends, is that conversations feel singular focused. Whoever starts the conversation gets full control over what gets said and what responses are used, which is fine, I get that. But it makes every other player who joins in later just kind of stand there, or sometimes wander around in the background. An amazing option would be to randomly vote as to what is said and who says it, with it randomly being chosen by a player member, especially when there's a situation where a certain character's skills would be more relevant, like letting a wizard player use their Arcana check instead of me being forced to make a neutral decision. A good example of a game that does this so well is Star Wars: The Old Republic MMO. It uses a die roll to determine who gets said by who in a group conversation. Something similar could be implemented here, or even allowing players to choose to default to another party member and letting them take the lead. This could go a long way to making group conversations feel more like a full party discussing it, instead of the others witnessing someone else's choices and the rest having to live with it. If dialogue responses are fully voiced and not just text, conversation would become much more lively. Basically, the same kind of party banter that comes from playing with NPCs in single player would be awesome in multiplayer. Well, related to that, nothing is more boring than watching another player make an important skill check in a conversation and not have anyone else see the die roll. In general, I love to see the D20 rolls and the results shown more often. The biggest one is in dialogue and being able to see another player's roll. It'd be the same excitement as watching them make an important roll at the D&D table. When passively walking around, the symbol in the corner lets you know whenever a passive skill check goes off. Just seeing a number on top of that would help so much. Failing a perception roll because I rolled a 4 or something is very different than knowing I rolled a perception but still failed with a 17. This would let me know if I should bother trying with anyone else. A good example of this would be a rogue, aka me, lockpicking. It'll tell me if I succeeded, yes or no. But if I fail, I can't tell if I even have a chance at this lock. If I could see my roll and see that my sleight of hand was only a 2 or an 11, I would keep trying. Or if I saw that I rolled a 19 and still failed, then I can know that's beyond my skill and I shouldn't waste more lockpicks on something I'm not likely to succeed. I appreciate that I can mouse over the action tracker in the lower right and see attack rolls and whatnot, so I'd like to see the same thing as a heads-up option. Even in combat, if it says I have a 55% chance to hit, a little d20 pop up above my head, or the target's head, to let me know the result can help. I would be less angry if I saw a 75% chance to hit and got the immediate feedback of knowing I rolled low instead of feeling screwed, like I was playing XCOM. On top of seeing dice rolls more often, I commend Larian for making it simple to understand for players. They've streamlined them in such a way that it removes a lot of the math involved for dum-dums who don't want to do any counting. If the DC is 10, and you have a +3 to succeed, it'll show the d20 and say you need to roll a 7 or a higher. That's great! Or when attacking, it'll let you know the percent chance to hit. Makes sense to me, but I'm also a very well-versed D&D player. I would love to see an option where all of these are changed back to tabletop D&D rules. Change the skill check to a DC 15, roll my d20, and then show my +7 being added to that roll. Or while attacking, instead of percentages, show me the modifiers. Show me what their armor class is, my attack bonuses through proficiency and ability scores, plus any other modifiers like flanking, cover, or darkness. It would help capture that tabletop feel, especially for players coming into Baldur's Gate 3 having only played actual D&D before. This would be a really cool option that players could toggle back and forth between, or activate it for some roles but keep it off for others. It's more math heavy, yes, but I'm also a nerd. However, I'm also a nerd who doesn't like to look stupid. I spent a lot of time on my guy. Please let me hide my helm. I look like an idiot. Actually, let me customize all of my equipment. Few things take away that feeling of individuality than seeing another person directly next to you wearing the exact same thing. And neither one of you is going to change in time for homecoming dance. The simplest solution to this would be dyes. Dyeing to alter the color of armor would be awesome, especially if you could choose what parts of the armor get altered. A primary, secondary, and tertiary color option to tweak would be fantastic. A step beyond this would be to have different patterns, designs, and armor layouts. They could even be just a few presets that players could toggle between. Again, this would be so that the fighter's scale mail doesn't look exactly the same as the cleric's scale mail. This can extend to helms, boots, gloves. Actually, let me hide boots and gloves in addition to the helms. Or being able to take any weapon and change how it looks would be awesome. Every dagger looks the same, every longsword looks the same. What if I could change the hilt or make the blade a different shape? I know there's a crafting system of sorts that's going to be put into the final build. Adding the ability to cosmetically change the equipment you already have is an enticing enough reason for anyone to want to use the crafting system. Good lord, let me sort my stuff. I have so much crap in here. Oh wait, there is a sort button? Can you see where it is? It's right here, completely separated from all the other buttons. This is extended to the extra storage at the camp. If I send something to my box and want to find it later, having to scroll through the whole thing without really knowing exactly where it was dropped is frustrating and time-consuming. Right now, the camp storage functions the same as looting a random barrel or chest. Making it an extension of the inventory could help alleviate this. Look at my shelves. Do I look like a guy that would let my game inventory be an unorganized mess? Come on! The hotbars for abilities and items can quickly get to be an over-cluttered mess. This is made worse by anyone who uses spells. Much like 5th edition rules, several spells can be cast at different levels, like a level 1 magic missile firing 3 bolts of energy versus a level 2 magic missile which shoots 4 bolts. Having both level 1 and level 2 as a separate button on the hotbar is needless. Especially once players get to the point where they have like a dozen different spells that can all be cast at different levels. Instead, when I click a spell that can be cast at a higher level, have a drop-down menu appear, letting me choose what level to cast it at. And if Larian Studios is feeling generous, a reminder of how many spell slots per level are remaining right there. Since I'm talking about clutter, this isn't so much a feature or anything, but just something I wanted to point out. During combat, I have no less than 4 different indicators of how many hit points I currently have. It's cool, dude. I got it. I think one of the smartest changes to the combat system of Baldur's Gate 3 from D&D 5th edition is additional attacks for every weapon type. For example, daggers have a once per short rest slash that deals weapon damage plus an additional 1d4 bleed damage. Great swords and great axes have the ability to cleave and hit multiple enemies in front of them. I love this concept. This gives even more combat options for every character and helps minimize the amount of times their turn is reduced down to just making a basic attack. I love this idea, and I think it should be leaned even more into. More weapon powers. The same mundane weapon having different attacks than the other. More options depending on the class who wields it. I think a good source of ideas for something like this, and hear me out on it, is Dungeons & Dragons 4th edition. Seriously though, there's a lot of good concepts for additional weapon attacks found in 4th edition class powers. Give clubs or axes the equivalent of Reaping Strike, allowing them to do guaranteed damage even on a miss. Give a mace the extra attack of Crushing Blow, reducing a target's armor class for a turn. Daggers could hamstring targets to reduce movement. There's a lot of possibilities here. Additionally, certain weapons should have different powers depending on whose hands they're in. A longbow used by a fighter is not the same as a longbow used by a ranger. An example idea? Right now, all bows give Pinning Shot, reducing a target's movement by half on a successful hit, which is fine. But what if the same bow was given to a ranger and they can use Twin Strike, allowing them to take an arrow shot at 2 different targets within 3 meters of each other? Plus, let's face it, archery-focused rangers could use a little boost in general. I'm thinking ahead here. I know the other core classes are coming. A wizard wielding a staff is different than a monk wielding a quarterstaff. A warlock with a longsword is different than a rogue with a longsword. A barbarian with a warhammer is different than one used by a cleric. The extra powers can reflect this. If it isn't different depending on the class that's holding the weapon, then it should just be randomized in the weapon itself. This can make finding even standard mundane weapons a little more exciting if it has a different attack power to use. I would have a reason to choose one short sword over another. This would help the random loot feel less repetitive and lackluster. In a battle system that already uses a lot of positioning, shifting, and extra effects on top of standard 5th edition D&D rules, more weapon powers fit right in.
Thanks for watching this video, everyone. If you got any of your own ideas you'd like to see made to Baldur's Gate 3, put them in the comments down below. If you haven't seen it, I've been uploading 7 days a week over my gameplay channel, so be sure to subscribe over there. And if you're in the mood for some other stuff, check out some of my other videos. I like the one I did on Super Mario Bros. 35.